The government of the United Kingdom announces new aid to combat Yemen's food crisis. Displaced communities in Marib struggle with having access to good drinking water. A tough domestic gas shortage hit major areas in Hodeidah Governorate. Good evening. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. I'm Abir Ali and you're watching the English news. The United Kingdom has announced sending new aid to Yemen. According to the announcement, the new aid aims to address the food crisis in the country. This report has more.
As part of the new food security package announced by Minister Andrew Mitchell, the UK will directly support up to 40,000 Yemeni people each month to alleviate hunger and poverty. The minister established the Brightly Consortium, a government NGO cooperation to implement the UK's flagship food security program in Yemen during a visit to Jordan. He added that the Russian-Ukraine war has led to the increase in food and fuel prices in Yemen and pushed more Yemenis into poverty. The UK tries to work on promoting a serious dialogue on ending the conflict in Yemen. Up to 40,000 Yemenis will receive financial transfers each month from the Brightly Consortium of NGOs, which will collaborate with and operate through national and international NGOs. Building resilience and empowering households to transcend poverty has proven to be successful when monetary assistance and livelihood help are provided together. In Yemen, UK aid is already assisting with 200,000 people being fed each month, 800,000 receiving life-saving medical care, and 85,000 children who are critically malnourished receiving treatment. Yemen's current level of hunger is extremely dangerous, causing great suffering for millions of people. Yemen is a country that has been suffering from the dire hunger crisis since the conflict broke out in 2015. According to the UN, about 17.4 million people need urgent humanitarian assistance. Millions of people in Yemen are at risk due to the conflict, climate shocks, and the possibility of wide world collapse. Yemen's most vulnerable families are having a tougher time getting by every day due to rising food insecurity. The situation in Yemen is most visible in widespread malnutrition, disease outbreaks, civilian casualties, and displacement, as well as the country's collapsing economy and looming famine. Unfortunately, the help provided still does not reach everyone in Yemen, leaving so many people on the verge of starvation.
Greenpeace International called on the United Nations to quickly start implementing the emergency rescue operation for Safar tanker. The organization said that we are sitting on a ticking time bomb and it's time for the United Nations to work to protect the Yemenis and the Red Sea. They emphasized that Safar has been floating off the coast of Yemen without maintenance since 2015, representing an imminent disaster. Civic Center called on the parties of the conflict in Yemen and the international communities to work hard to reach a comprehensive settlement. This center said that the efforts must be redoubled to end the conflict that has been going on for about 9 years. Displaced communities in Marib Governorate struggle to have access to good drinking water. This has aggravated the suffering of the displaced. This report gives more details.
The suffering of the displaced is aggravating in more than 196 camps within Marib Governorate in terms of food, medicine, shelter, and education, in addition to the water crisis that many displaced families suffer from. Here in El Maashir camp, the displaced wait for hours for the arrival of the water tank provided by a benefactor, where the displaced receive water almost daily, which provides them with a kind of safe living, in contrast with the other camps where the displaced travel long distances in search of portable water.
We're suffering from lack of water services, and the drinking water here is quite salty. We are provided with a water tanker, however it's not sufficient for the displaced families.
Here in El Jufaina camp, one of the largest displacement camps inside the city, most of the displaced people suffer from the scarcity of water, especially portable water, which makes them resort to buying water with excessive sums, which worsens their living conditions. These tanks, which were placed by relief organizations, didn't change the situation of the displaced, although they hoped that their situation would change for the better by providing water for the camp. However, they have remained without water since they were installed for more than a year and a half.
International organizations do not provide us with tankers. For 1 year, we are suffering from the high prices of water tanks, which are not sufficient for more than a week.
The absence of water in the camps for the displaced constitutes a new concern, added to the many types of suffering resulting from war that have exhausted families. The need for clean water is considered one of the most absent needs that they have been lacking for years, without finding any solutions by the organizations and the concerned authorities.
Dozens of civilians died and were injured in a terrible accident on a rugged mountain road in Hajj. Local sources reported that the horrific accident caused the death and injury of 25 people, including women and children in Hajj. They confirmed that the accident was caused by a car slipping from a high mountain slope in Asharaq district. A tough domestic gas crisis has hit major areas in Adala governorate. This has forced citizens to buy gas from the black market at high price, which most of them cannot afford. The following report has more.
Yemenis continue to suffer amid the lack of basic services. Here in Al-Dala, residents complain about the lack of adequate domestic gas, which reaches the governorate through the state gas company to distribute it through representatives of villages and neighborhoods. This shortage has caused the majority of families to go to the black market to buy domestic gas at prices that reach 20,000 riyals per cylinder.
I'm forced to go to buy a gas cylinder from black market, which is about 20,000 riyals. I call on authorities to find a solution for this. I am a displaced from Qataba. I have a family of more than 10 people. We barely take any gas, and each week I need about 1 gas cylinder.
With the increasing complaints of residents about the wide shortage in the quantities of domestic gas in the districts of Al-Dala, specialists attributed the gas crisis to disproportionate with the number of population and with the increasing numbers of displaced families from inside and outside the governorate.
We urge authorities to look upon the issue of high gas prices. It isn't enough for the citizens, as there are the people of the city in addition to displaced people from different governorates. I'm a displaced person. I go to buy gas with 15,000 riyal, but I can't keep affording this price.
The majority of families in Al-Dala now have 2 options to provide household gas, either resorting to the black market at an extreme high price or returning to primitive means using firewood. And in both cases, the citizen is the one that suffers from this harsh reality.
Coming next in the news. The Houthi militia continues to tamper with the educational system of the country.
أبي مات بشارع 40 دحين أنا أشقى على أسرتي مع باقي اللي أنا أصرف عليهم كل شيء. أنا اسمي أنس رصيد سيف، عمري 12 سنة. أنا أشتغل بورشة حديد من الساعة 7 للساعة 6. أحيانا أسرع، أحيانا أقص، أحيانا أرنق، أحيانا أنقش، أي حاجة أنا أعمل. لا الساعة لما تبدأ الساعة 6 أوقف. أنا وقفت الدراسة علشان ما فيش أحد يشقى على أسرتي، أدرس أخواني الباقي من 4 وأنا الخامس. أحلم إن أفتح ورشة أبي وأشقى على أسرتي وأمدي لهم مصاري وأدرس أخوتي الآخر الجامعات وأطبخ أي شيء.
Welcome back. 2 fishermen drowned and a third survived as their boat sank off the coast in Al Khawkhasari. Local sources said that the fishermen were found dead after their boat sank at the sea during a fishing trip. According to the sources, a third fisherman was rescued and taken to a hospital for treatment. A new report has revealed that casualties among civilians in Yemen has reduced by half during the truce period last year. The following report has more.
During Yemen's 6-month ceasefire in 2022, civilian deaths and injuries decreased by 54%, but the number of people displaced over the 8 years of the conflict has risen to over 2 million, according to the International Organization for Migration. The IOM's displacement tracking matrix estimated that around 2,302,000 people are currently internally displaced in Yemen, with Ma'rib Governorate witnessing the highest rates of movement in 2022. While the UN-mediated truce between the Houthi rebels and the internationally recognized Yemeni government did alleviate suffering and displacement compared to previous years, however, the IOM said that the humanitarian needs are higher than ever in the war-torn country due to conflict and extreme weather conditions such as flooding. According to the International Organization for Migration, although there were no large-scale escalations following the truce in 2022, humanitarian needs continued to worsen across the country. Gaps in the humanitarian response persist, especially in the provision of vital health services, protection support, shelter, and other non-food item assistance. In 2022, around 60,800 people were displaced in the south of the country, a considerable drop from the 157,500 displaced the previous year. However, only 94 of the 195 hosting sites for displaced people are supported by external partners, raising concerns over emergency prevention and response measures. 8 years have passed since the outbreak of armed conflict in Yemen, when the Houthi rebels took control of the capital Sana'a in September 2014 and sparked military intervention by a Saudi-led coalition 6 months later. The war has created one of the world's worst humanitarian crises, with millions suffering from food insecurity, lack of adequate housing, and the spread of diseases.
The King Salman Relief Center signed a joint agreement to provide food aid to more than 200,000 people affected by the conflict in Yemen. The agreement includes the distribution of about 180,000 food parcels to the affected people in Marib, Al Jawf, Hadramaut, and other regions. King Salman Relief Center signed an agreement with the International Society for the Care of Victims of Wars and Disasters. The agreement is going to operate with the Prosthetics and Rehabilitation Center in Taiz Governorate, benefiting 3,956 individuals. The director of the Medical and the Environment Aid explained that during the project, physical rehabilitation services will be provided to people with special needs. The Houthi militia continues to tamper with the educational system in Yemen. Such assaults against the education aim to distort the national identity of generations of Yemeni students. The following report has more details.
The war in Yemen has had the greatest impact on primary and secondary education. Since 2014, the fighting has engulfed nearly all Yemeni governorates. Education in Yemen has been exposed to extensive damage, affecting people, curricula, and infrastructure. As a result, more than 4 million children have been denied the right to a basic education, and the figure is expected to climb to more than 6 million. The content of the educational curricula has been modified and replaced, especially in areas controlled by the Houthi group, with rhetoric that promotes sectarian convictions and sways students' behaviors towards violence, a desire for death, extremism, and racism. Teachers in predominantly populated areas also faced abuse, prosecution, arrests, enforced disappearance, and non-payment of their salaries. Some of them were forced to work alternative jobs and trades to make a living, including joining the fighting fronts. More than 3,000 schools have been completely or partially destroyed as a result of aerial bombardment, mines, traps, and exploded ordnances, and some of them have been converted into military barracks and weapon stores. According to Houthi official statements, roughly 500,000 children were enrolled in 6,000 summer camps in areas of Houthi control during the 2021 academic year. Educational sources in the group's controlled areas state that cultural courses include lessons and training activities that urge jihad and fighting, endear participants to death, and train them to use weapons. Yemeni children are the most susceptible group in the nation to globally and nationally prohibited abuses. Minor combatants on the front lines face death, injury, maiming, exploitation, and the denial of all basic rights. Despite of all of this, efforts must be redoubled to restore and rehabilitate all components of the educational process. The continuation of this ruin heralds a serious disaster that may fundamentally threaten peace and security in the entire region for decades to come.
Here is a reminder of the main headlines. The government of the United Kingdom announces new aid to combat Yemen's food crisis. Displaced communities in Marib struggle with having access to good drinking water. A tough domestic gas shortage hits major areas in Adada Governorate. This is the end of the news. It was Abir Ali, and thank you for watching.